All right, Mr. Chair, you are live.
I would like to welcome everyone this evening to the meeting of the Annapolis Human Relations Commission. The first item of business that we have this evening is the approval of the minutes from our June meeting. That was our last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes shall stand approved by common consent. I would like to express thanks to our two guests this evening, Dr. Nikki Smith-Kea and Amber Barnett. And in keeping with our policy, I would like to move the agenda so that we take up new business 6A. In which we'll be receiving a presentation from Dr. Nikki, and that is her preferred name, I should say, or her reference, as well as from Amber Barnett. And I'll give a bit of an introduction to that. But do we have our usual common consent for flipping the agenda to take up the items from our guests? Hearing no objections, we'll proceed in that way. And again, I'd like to thank all members of the commission for being with us this evening, and also thank our staff liaison, Claudia Barber, for assisting us. Thank you for your help in that regard, Judge. Anne Arundel County has started a new hate crimes prevention program, and it has hired Dr. Nikki Smith-Kea to manage a $1.2 million grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to initiate the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. hate crimes prevention program. Anne Arundel County is the only county entity in Maryland to be awarded the grant in this application cycle. So my congratulations to Dr. Nikki, as well as to Ms. Barnett, for their work in securing this incredibly important grant. And Dr. Nikki will work under the direction of the Office of Equity and Human Rights, of which Ms. Barnett is Assistant Director. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
So that provides you with a very brief introduction to this issue. I can say that Dr. Nikki actually reached out to me and expressed great interest in talking to the City Human Relations Commission, and I was delighted by her willingness to do that. I would mention that another commissioner has joined us. That's Commissioner Jay Williams, and we now have all of the active commissioners on this call. So you've got the commission. The first, I think, step I'd like to take is to call on Dr. Nikki to discuss the development of this hate crimes prevention program and what specifically its content is. In other words, what are you going to do with that money? What kinds of priorities do you have for it? So I'll just turn the mic over to you, so to speak, and let you give the commission a briefing, and you can speak as long as you want on this. What we're looking for is a real comprehensive report on what you're going to be doing with this.
Sure. Thank you, Michael. As Michael said, I am Nicola Smith-Kea by birth. I go by Dr. Nikki. My colleague Amber Barnett is actually going to start with a presentation, but let me just set expectations. I'm not doing a formal presentation. I think at this time of evening, no one wants to see a PowerPoint. So I'll be talking a bit more about just what we're doing. And after Amber, I'll jump back in.
Thank you, Dr. Nikki. Good evening again, everyone. My name is Amber Barnett. I'm the Assistant Director for the Office of Equity and Human Rights for the county. Prior to joining the county, and I've been with the county for maybe about going on 4 months now, so fairly new. I was the Director of Race and Equity in Arlington, Virginia for about a year, and their project manager to assist.
Is it just me or did we lose sound?
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
hearing you fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear now. It was just me. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you for flagging that. And so I've joined the office and just want to give you a brief overview of what our office does, and then I'll turn it back over to Dr. Nikki. So our office actually has, as I mentioned, we're the Office of Equity and Human Rights. So we kind of have a two-prong approach to the work that we do. We do a couple of things. The first of that is upholding anti-discrimination laws in employment, housing, public accommodations, and the provision of county services. The second half of that is to really integrate equity and inclusivity and access into county operations. And so my role really oversees the equity side of the work that we do. And so I will work with county agencies and departments to really make sure that they are applying an equity lens to the work that they're doing, not just in the way that they deliver services, but thinking about what equity looks like in budgeting. What does it look like in the way we engage with community members? All of those things, and really getting them to be thoughtful and intentional and forward thinking about that, so that as they address some of those things internally, we'll start to see that reflect in the community. Similarly, when I'm working with the community, really just getting an understanding of where the gaps are, where inequities exist within the county, where folks don't have access and opportunity to services that we provide as a county, and making sure that our office does what we can to close those gaps. Because my work is really about creating opportunity and access for everybody and making sure that everybody has equal opportunity to the opportunities that we have available in the county. So I just wanted to give you all a brief introduction to my work and what I do. In addition to the equity work that we do have a civil rights investigator who handles our EEO and fair housing cases in the office. We actually this year, luckily, have been able to bring on a service year program fellow through Westmore's program. And so we have him on staff through next year, which is exciting. We have an executive assistant that supports our work as well. And then Dr. Nikki, who is our senior project manager for the Shepherd-Berg grant. So I will get out of you all's way unless there are questions and turn it over to Dr. Nikki to talk to you all about the Shepherd-Berg grant.
Are there any questions for Amber? Okay, thank you for that introduction to the work of your office, Amber. And I'm going to call on Dr. Nikki to tell us about
Actually,
the.
I have a question.
Oh, okay, Linda.
Thanks for the explanation about the office. I have been reading a bit about it. I'm curious how you work with the city of Annapolis and how you would like to work with the city of Annapolis.
That is a great question. My initial thoughts are that given that the city of Annapolis, I know, has its own sort of local government kind of function, but I do think that we're still in Anne Arundel County, right? And so how is it that we can collaborate to make our work stronger, build greater capacity to do the work, with the nuanced understanding of the difference in how the city of Annapolis operates and functions, right? And what the needs are for the city versus the county at large. And so for me, it is always taking a collaborative approach to that, but also stepping back to honor and appreciate all of those nuances that I mentioned in the culture of the community and how we kind of marry those things together with what we're doing to build greater capacity for stronger impact.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I was curious because I also know that the city of Annapolis doesn't have the resources that the county does as far as just having the Office of Equity, which is amazing. I'd love it if we had that in Annapolis, but I don't know that that's on anybody's agenda anytime soon for the budget. So I feel like we definitely, need you all here too.
Yes, and I would love to hear more just about, what you all are seeing in the community and what some challenges are and how we may be able to partner to address some of those things.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions for me? All right, Dr. Nikki, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Amber. And yes, Linda, we will be collaborating, so you'll hear more about that. Just a brief introduction on who I am. Again, Nikki Smith Key. I live in Shadyside, on the Shadyside Peninsula in Columbia Beach. Prior to starting with the county, which I started just August 15th. So Michael, again, I'll set expectations. I do not yet have a comprehensive report to give you because I just started a month and a half ago. And so what I'm doing is doing outreach to commissions, to different stakeholders, to gatekeepers in the community. So you'll see me popping up in different places across the county. I said to a colleague, although I live in the county, I don't know the county. If you live in South County, you recognize how very different it is from Annapolis and the rest of the county. And so I'm looking forward to really learning more about the county as I move this forward. Just to give a little background of who I am and how I came to this space. Prior to starting here, I was an executive in residence with the Philadelphia Police Department. So in 2021, they reached out to me and asked me to come in to do some reform effort. And I was embedded in the executive team of the Philadelphia Police Department. And in that position, I led the implementation of a number of efforts. And I'll name just a few of them. If you're interested in learning more, I'm happy to share more. An early intervention system geared towards promoting officer safety and wellness, a neighborhood policing initiative, which is really focused on community policing, not in the sense of the word that we're hearing it these days. It's not about events, but really getting the community as decision makers, as partners in public safety. Also did a procedurally just framework, youth engagement with youth to get the voices of youth, a voice that is often not heard and neglected. And I'm also a part of, you might have heard it, you might not have, a 30 by 30 initiative. I'm on the steering committee for that effort. It's a national effort that is geared towards increasing the number of women in policing by 30% by the year 2030. And before that, a lot of my work was centered around the intersection of mental health, substance use disorder, homelessness, and policing. And I helped to build the Police Mental Health Collaboration Toolkit that sits on the Bureau of Justice Assistance webpage under the DOJ. So just a little about my background. Again, if you're like me, you would have Googled me and you would have found other things. I won't go into all of that today, but I'm more than willing to come back. In terms of a comprehensive overview, I do not have that today, and I'll be authentic because I'm learning. I'm learning what we need to do. We have a narrative and what we're going to do. As I mentioned, and as I think Michael mentioned, this grant came out of the Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, and it's really to fund funding to support conducting outreach, educating practitioners and the public, enhancing victim report tools. And it was a 1.2 million, it is a $1.2 million grant, which is a huge win for the county, including Annapolis as a part of the county. This is not something that is given out often in that capacity. And so we really need to celebrate that. What we do know is that hate crimes and the latest hate bias report, Maryland hate crime bias report, came out last week, the 2024 report, which gives information, data from 2014 to 2023. And what we do know is since 2014 to 2023, a 9-year span, we've seen 44% increase in hate bias crimes. And there has been fluctuations, right? The highest year was 2019 when we saw 81. hate bias incidents reported. The challenge is, and what this grant is going to help us do, is really try to prevent, investigate, and prosecute hate crimes. But that requires conversation, that requires engagement with community. A lot of the current victims of hate crimes are sometimes terrified to report these crimes. So how do we engage with the community on a level that we can get them to trust us, to share information about others? And we've heard about some of these increases anecdotally, and we've seen it in the papers over the years. The racist messages on county churches, the vandalism of churches, people using hate speech, and we are seeing that increase. So how do we put together a really comprehensive plan to do that? And again, the Shepherd Bird program goals is to develop a comprehensive approach to hate crimes prevention, investigation, and prosecution, and to provide services to victims of hate bias incidents in Anne Arundel County. I have so far put it in 3 broad categories. So it's going to be a multi-pronged approach. And we're going to take our time and be very intentional about how we do this. What I should have mentioned in the beginning, this is a 4-year grant, which is again an amazing win for the county. So the 3 areas that I've put it in is engagement, education, and empowerment. And as I'm speaking to stakeholders like yourselves, I am now also thinking about where will you fit in there. And I think this first prong of engaging, educating, and empowering is where the HRCs will fit very nicely. How can you help us to engage with the community? How can you help us to educate the community and or empower the community? So as I'm mentioning this, I would love for you all to think about ways that you can do that. We also need to collaborate and build consensus. So at the moment, you heard me mention hate bias incidents and also hate crimes. 2 different definitions. Some things don't reach the level of being criminalized. And
Right.
again, how do we educate persons in the community? This is the information we need to be able to criminalize the behavior that is an unacceptable behavior. On top of that, we're also enhancing tactics and technology. And I write those words with a smile because there are sometimes you have to write the words that police will gravitate towards. So some of we are engaging with all the public safety agencies in the county, Crofton PD, Annapolis PD, Linda. So I've had meetings with the chief in Annapolis, of course, the county PD and the community college PD. So all of them will be involved and engaged. There will be training. There will be new equipment being bought. We're going to encourage community engagement, increased community engagement across the agencies. We're conducting outreach and education to persons, preparing program partners. In the near future, what you will hear and you will see, I will send emails again to all the partners. We're hoping to form a multidisciplinary team. And what that will ask for is a representation from each of these committees, commissions, so that we have a comprehensive conversation and build consensus across different entities so that we all have one voice. I could easily meet with each HRC or each stakeholder, but we've decided that we're going to bring a representative or 2 from each to form a team. I know everyone is volunteering. I know it's going to be a bigger ask of people. I know it's going to be a stretch, but I think it's really important that we move away from working in silos, that we move away from working in we're Annapolis versus we're Highland Beach versus we're the county. We're all a part of the county. And so how do we have a common messaging? Another thing that's in the near future will be a communications campaign. And again, that's something I would love you all to think about so that when we communicate again, and yes, Michael, I'm going to invite myself to other meetings. When we communicate again, you can share with me what you think your strengths are and how you can best help in moving this program forward. So I'll stop there for now and promise to come back to you with more details as we build this strategy out, because I also do not want to come in and just build something. This needs to be the voice of everyone in the county. And I'm also very keen on ensuring that representation is also a part of what we're doing. So it's not going to be the usual suspects. I need a representative audience in building this strategy. And I thank you, Claudia.
Okay, so, hi.
Hi.
There has been some discussion among civil rights community groups about being on high alert during this election season and the concerns about the election results and the concerns about what would happen after the election results are certified. So, is there a strategic plan that might be considered? Should there be a concern about threats that are being made now among the electorate, and how the hate crime process would be involved?
So is there a strategic plan to respond to that? Not at this time. Again, I just started. I need to learn more. What I would encourage you, Claudia, if you have contact information for individuals in those various groups, please share them with me. I'd love to have conversations with them and talk with them. That will be very helpful. But also to encourage people to report these incidents. A huge part of the problem at this moment is that they're not being reported. And so you can't prosecute if you're not getting information. And so that's going to be a part of the campaign as well. And we'll ensure that the campaign is multilingual. We're going to have both English, Spanish, and Korean. If there are other languages that you think we should be focusing on, please do let us know. But again, Claudia, at this time, I do not have a response to that because I just started and I need to understand what's going on. And there are other bodies in process that are already working with such situation. You can certainly also report these to Asha's office, to our office, and have conversations with folks there. As Amber mentioned, we have an investigative individual in our office, and of course, reporting it to law enforcement if people are comfortable. What we also understand is the discomfort of many people going to law enforcement. So are there, and this is something we need to encourage community members, are there stakeholders, are there leaders in the community who people would be more willing to share their concerns with, who can then take it a step further? Hope I answered I didn't give you a full answer, but I hope I gave you a sufficient answer.
The Annapolis Human Relations Commission has had a long history of involvement in activities to respond to hate crimes and bias incidents. And this goes back decades, not just years, but decades. We started it when we collaborated many years ago with the County Human Relations Commission. And, invited a delegation of folks who were experts in how to respond to hate crimes and bias incidents. And it was really a very productive program. One of the things I think that we see as probably one of the more important things is to identify that there needs to be different strategies that need to be applied when it comes to bias incidents as opposed to hate crimes. Most of the things that occur fall under the rubric of bias incidents. In other words, they're despicable acts, but they're constitutionally protected. And I think one of the things that we've worked really hard on is to, if there is a bias incident, the tendency of people are to immediately call the police. Well, the police often can't do anything about it. The second is that people take the attitude of, oh, just ignore those creeps, they'll go away. that is not a good strategy at all. The groups that have been involved in hate bias incidents in this county, and I should mention that in Anne Arundel County, you do have that activity. It's organized. They are not as vocal as they were at one time. But we did have, during my tenure here, we did have a rally by the Ku Klux Klan at the State House in Annapolis years ago. And we did have incidents that were sponsored by neo-Nazi groups that operate out of West Virginia that were responsible for the so-called Turner Diaries and were responsible for the act of domestic terrorism that happened at a U.S. government building a number of years ago. So I think the things that are for us that we can be most helpful with is working with your team, Dr. Nikki, in doing two things. One is ratcheting up the efforts to respond to hate incidents. With respect to hate crimes, those things go to the police, and there's something that can be done in that area too. It's been my experience that police don't always, and I'm talking here about the Annapolis police don't always put in the reports they prepare a recommendation that a matter be prosecuted under the state's hate crime laws. And that, I think, is an important area of work that needs to be done with the police department, that there is a consistency of not, letting that opportunity to prosecute people who are engaged in criminal behavior, such as vandalism, such as attacks, physical attacks on people, things that would be normally considered a crime. But sometimes they're not prosecuted because the state's attorney office is not made aware that the police wanted a charge to be made under the hate crimes statute that exists in state law and in county law, as well as in the law of the city of Annapolis. So I'll call on other commissioners. Do you have any thoughts on this? I think we're hearing what Dr. Nikki is saying is that we really need to sort of dialogue among ourselves to come up with an approach that we can take to work in collaboration with her and her team, and hopefully complement and supplement the work that they're doing in Anne Arundel County. Our focus is strictly within the city of Annapolis.
Absolutely. And really, it's going to be about educating the community and having intentional and many times very difficult conversations. And how do we facilitate those conversations in a respectful, dignified manner? You mentioned the work that was done probably decades ago or years ago. Where is that information? Is that information that can be shared? So those are things that I'd love to see, but certainly I see you squarely working in the engagement education space. I went to the inaugural 2024 hate crime conference out of the DOJ in Birmingham, Alabama, 2 weeks ago. And one thing that one jurisdiction was doing is that their prosecutor's office was actually having informational, educational sessions with law enforcement and also within community. This is what is needed to prosecute a crime. Sometimes we assume people know, but sometimes we need to remind them as well. And for people to fully understand what it takes for a hate bias incident to be prosecuted as a crime. And I think in many situations, people just don't know. And so how do we help to educate community members to have a better sense of what is needed in those situations, and at the same time help to change the narrative and help people to get a bit more understanding of each other?
Yeah, I think one of the more effective responses that a community in Anne Arundel County made a number of years ago was in the southern part, not in southern Maryland, but along the greater part of Eastport that's covered by a lot of waterfront property. And there was a hate group that went door to door with bottles, and they would throw bottles with nasty literature in it on people's lawns. Well, what the community did was they collected all the material, all the paper, all the nasty stuff, and then they held a bonfire, burned it, and the Capitol was there. It was a front page story. That group never came back. That's the kind of response that's needed. It has to be very clear and cut that, you know, we do not want that group here. A number of years ago, the one memorable event is the Annapolis Human Relations Commission called a press conference to denounce an action which was being discussed by a group called Westboro Baptist Church. Not a church. It's a group of haters is what it is. But they were coming to protest against the U.S. Naval Academy because the U.S. Naval Academy was enforcing the law with respect to LGBTQ individuals at the time. And they were going to hold this massive demonstration at the city gate. So we have a press conference. We had religious leaders across the spectrum, you know, including the pastor of Heritage Baptist Church, a Southern Baptist Church, you know, and participated in this. The Westboro Baptist Church never showed up. They never showed up. And so if it's demonstrated to them, to these groups that are involved in bias incidents, and bias incidents we've found are much more frequent than the hate crimes.
Correct.
The worst thing you can do is to ignore them, because they take that as a sign that there's hidden support. You have to be proactive in responding very quickly. Now, sometimes people, it's difficult to get people to respond. Sometimes people just don't want it, and they call the police. You know, the police are limited. If there's a crime committed, if there's a hate crime, the first point of contact has got to be the police, because that's something that's their job, to enforce the law and to arrest individuals who are engaged in criminal misbehavior. But when it comes to the shady area of bias incidents, the public needs to understand that they need to respond to those kinds of actions and incidents. I can give you lots of examples of what we've done over the years, and commissioners know those things. But I'd be very happy to share that with you and share the resources that we have. As I said, it's responding to hate crimes and bias incidents has been a long-standing priority of this commission, and it will remain so.
Thank you.
We look forward to working with you. And I think what the commission will do is take your 3 E's of the 3 prongs that you mentioned and have a discussion with ourselves about what exactly we can do and the best way that we can assist you. And always feel free to reach out to us. This commission is proactive. We will respond to things. And we definitely want to work in collaboration with you to make your effort successful, as well as the effort of the office of which Amber is a part. I fully agree with you about silos. Silos don't get you anywhere. You need to have collaboration and communication, and I think that's what we can do. What we can do here. I'd like to just turn it over to commissioners. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments or observations about this opportunity that we have before us? Commissioner Hurley?
Well, first, welcome. I mean, we very much look forward to joining with you. And I'm sure if you do learn of an incident in the city of Annapolis, I hope you'll ring the bell because we have more progress to work on. I mean, we're made some progress, but it's not enough. And second, I may have missed it, but I didn't hear you mention the really alarming increase in anti-Semitic activity and during this past year and before, and that I'm sure I don't have to. I'm sure you are fully engaged in that as well. That's another one to keep your eye on. And
Absolutely.
then finally, education is great, but wherever there is a crime incident, and the case can be made, we need to make sure that's done and support the efforts for enforcement, because that's what would lead to deterrence. Most of the people that will respond to education aren't the people we're really worried about. So, and I know you agree with that. So I just would mention that.
Thank you so much.
Other thoughts, other comments?
I'll just add, from a data collection perspective, I think it is really, I'll emphasize the need and importance for people to report these things, because so much of what we do is based on the data that we have. And if folks are underreporting or not reporting at all, we don't know these things are happening. And so, it would then become, once we know these things are happening, it's in our office's job to think about how we start to address those through education and outreach and all of these other things, right? And so I just want to underscore that, the piece about reporting. And I think this commission could be super helpful in, like Dr. Nikki said, the educational components, the outreach components, engaging folks so they really understand the difference between a hate crime and a hate bias incident, right? Do they know the reporting processes? All of those things are critical.
Michael, I want to thank you and the commission for having us on. This has been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so looking forward to working with you all. Don't worry, I'm not shy about reaching out, so you will be hearing from me. And thank you again so much for your time.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Nikki and Amber, for joining us this evening. I think the commission is going to definitely want to be fully engaged and involved, and especially in terms of how things may involve the city of Annapolis. See, we got a completely, as I'm sure you've already learned, there's a completely separate governing entity.
Yes.
Maryland does not have many small cities which are legal entities, but Annapolis, the city of Annapolis, is one. We do have a city council. And we've got a fairly extensive number of administrative departments, as well as 30 boards and commissions. And so I think that to the extent to which there are incidents and episodes that arise within the city, and we're going to be talking about one recent one in just a couple of minutes, the extent to which there are incidents within the city, we will definitely respond to them, and we'll want to work with you in ways that we sort of serve as your arm, so to speak.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else? I might mention to you, Dr. Nikki, as well as Amber, is that one thing we're going to be talking about immediately afterwards, this very next item, if you saw the agenda, was responses to the racist incident in Annapolis that involved an attack on African-American bicyclists, which was a shocking response, a shocking action, but one in which the city has been responding to. So you're certainly certainly invited, if you wish to and able to continue to stay on that. This is something that we did follow up on very quickly, and happily the city leadership has jumped into it, including Mayor Buckley. So, but thank you again, in any case, for joining us this evening. With respect to that item, the response to the racist incident in Annapolis that involves an attack on African-American bicyclists with bear spray. I had a conversation with Chuck Hurley, who's the chair of the outreach committee of the commission, to touch base with some of the principals who are involved, not those who are involved in carrying out this act, but with city leaders and other groups that could organize a response to that disgusting act. Commissioner Hurley, could you share with commissioners exactly what you did on this? And
Sure.
I may add some comments of my own.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Mike. You and I have talked about this several times over the summer. A quick context of this was one of my first meetings as a commissioner. Carl Snowden made a particularly powerful presentation where he said there are places in this city he's not welcome. And that still sticks with me. And one of the places, of course, he mentioned was City Dock. And I think we've made significant progress in that area. It looks a little more like America, like it's supposed to. But there was a real setback on June 28th that came to our attention through a really great article by former Capital Gazette editor Rick Hutzel, in which he, in considerable detail, laid out an incident that occurred when the First Baptist Church of Glenarden, which I believe is a mega church of some possibly even 12,000 members, has an active youth program led by the youth pastor of cycling, and I believe their unit is called Pushing Pedals. They often have, and several times previous to that, without incident, come down to City Dock to get ice cream, which is what most people do. Then there was an incident, and if the details are accurate, and I assume they are, Rick Hutzel is a first-rate journalist. And there was a follow-up article, as Mike and I have talked about, also in the Capital Gazette, but I think Rick deserves primary credit. A large group of cyclists from a large church came down fully within their rights to enjoy an ice cream cone at City Dock. And an incident of rock throwing from, I think, a black car by a white guy ensued. I believe also with hate speech from the car. And when the bicyclist who was knocked down got up and went towards the car, he was sprayed with bear spray. And then, of course, the car took off. That's about as ugly an incident as you can get. The good news is that the mayor joined a follow-on activity by the same Pushing Pedals group of First Baptist Church of Glenarden. He joined their right, as everybody knows, he's a pretty avid bicyclist. If that's right, cyclist, I guess is probably the right word. And they came down into the credit Kerwin ice cream. I think gave everyone free ice cream. That's the kind of thing we need to emphasize, to really support and encourage the kind of atmosphere we want in Annapolis. At Mike's direction, I did reach out to the mayor's office and also to Rhonda Pinot-Charles, who chairs the Public Safety Committee of the City Council, and she was supportive, of course. And the initial response from the mayor's office I got was they would, very much support our activity, to support efforts to make sure this never happens again. And we look forward to hearing further from. It's still not clear to me that there is an active investigation underway. City Council member Pinot-Charles, her understanding was there wasn't, but if there is, obviously they have to conclude that before they reach out to us. We probably have to do our homework with our city leaders before we reach out to the First Baptist Church of Glenarden. But that's where we stand, Mike, and I think we're going to follow up in every way we can to support efforts to make this never happen again.
Yeah, thank you for your initiative on this, Chuck, and for touching base with the mayor's office as well as others who are affected by this act. The Capitol, which did run 2 stories on it after the article appeared in the Baltimore Banner, and according to the Capitol article, the cyclists didn't immediately call 911. but did so a few days later. And according to the Capitol article, the investigation by the police has been slow going. That's what the article said.
Mike, can I comment on that? I think the wires got crossed immediately. The police officers that the cyclists spoke to was actually a Naval Academy police officer. So that, complicates the jurisdiction stuff. It wasn't on Academy grounds. It was but I think that's been straightened out. We hope that they are pursuing whatever methods they have. I'm sorry to interrupt, Mike, but I wanted to add that.
Yeah, I mean, the article in the Capitol specifically quoted the mayor as saying that the city, and I quote, "The city has made progress in determining the specifics of the car involved and is seeking out security footage to find the number on the license plate," which the mayor said that one of the riders noted was from Virginia. But I think it's notable that in response, I think, to your outreach, Chuck, that the mayor personally joined the group of 100 cyclists and participated in what was called the ride against hate. So I think that this was I think it was really good that the mayor representing the leadership of the city was personally engaged in this.
Two quick points, Mike. I got to believe he didn't respond I think he did it on his own initiative, but it's great to see that kind of leadership, which is what we want. It's also really fascinating that the First Baptist Church of Glenarden didn't respond in hate. They spoke of it as an act of love. They came back, had a successful ride. Hopefully they have more of those rides. But I think it was the best way to deal with hate is, and as they indicated, was an act of love, which they did, and it was successful in that instance. But we want to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, are there any questions or comments about this event or the participation in urging city leaders to respond quickly to it? Okay. Again, thank you, Chuck, for following up on this.
Was it reported as a hate crime?
That would of course be dependent on whether the police got the evidence they needed to make the case. We have not heard that has happened, but we hope we're going to keep following up. If we learn anything on that, we'll be sure to get in touch with you.
Okay, we have one other item on the agenda, and for this item, I'm going to ask Commissioner Monday to report.
Commissioner Keller, before we move on, I do have a quick question. I apologize.
Sure, Commissioner.
So what I'd like to know is, so far as follow-ups from the police department, do they provide us with any follow-up reports so far as the status of what's going on with their investigation and all, since it was a hate-related incident?
What we can definitely get is a copy of the police report. And the police report should say whether or not there was going to be action taken under the hate crimes statutes.
Okay.
Anything beyond that would have to be a special request that would be made to them. And the extent to which they'll respond would depend on the internal processes of the police department. But if we strongly wanted something, I think we've got the wherewithal doing it. We've got an excellent staff liaison in Judge Barber, and we also have an excellent manager of the Office of Human Resources in which we're housed, Tricia Hopkins. And they're both going to strongly support us on something like this. So the answer to your question, Commissioner Hatch, is we definitely can get a police report. We definitely can get reports on follow-ups. Anything more would probably take a special request to the police department. But in this situation, I think they would want to be cooperative.
And Josh, I'll specifically ask for any further information that they have.
Yeah, I think it just helps with community relations, you know, for us to have that type of information, so that we can, when we're engaging with the public as well, that we can say that the police is providing information, and of course the information they will provide us, they will provide to the public. But we're hoping that the commission, which it is more in tune with what's going on. So that type of information would be helpful. And I don't think that it should be a special request. I think it's just something that is a procedural matter in relationship with the community that they should provide to us, so that we can make sure when we're having these conversations, we can say that, you know, the police has been forthcoming and they're providing updates on a regular basis, and, you know, we're aware of what's going on. Of course, nothing to tamper with their investigation, but information that would be helpful in relaying to the public.
Yeah.
I can get on this right away and consult with the police department and try to get a police report and provide that information to the commission.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you. Thank you, Ms. Barber.
And I can't help but wonder, since we have the experts on the call right now, Dr. Smith-Kia and Ms. Barnett, but do you think that there's anything else here that we're not thinking of that we probably should be following up on?
Let me start by saying I commend you all and appreciate the thoroughness with which you have been investigating this situation and issue. I think Michael had mentioned it and Chuck had mentioned it earlier. The challenge really is the definitions between hate bias incident versus hate crime. And in I think all the departments in Anne Arundel County, including Annapolis PD, uses the state definition of hate crime, which is a challenging definition to meet for it to be prosecuted as hate. But I think what the response that you all have seen is just simply commendable, and the work that you all are doing is commendable. I really have nothing else to add. I think you all are managing it in a fabulous way. And I think getting the information from the police department, as Commissioner Hatch has said, to share with the community will go a far way to build relationships of trust between law enforcement and community. People want to hear what's going on in an intentional, authentic way. And time is of the essence. So the sooner people hear, the better and more comfortable they will feel. Saying that, it is also difficult for police to provide information in some situations because they just don't have the necessary information at this point.
Yeah, are there other questions, other comments on this?
Aisha has her hand up.
Yes, look here. I know that in the past with the Anne Arundel Police Department that I believe it, I'm so sorry, I had a guest that came in. I believe that if not quarterly, the police department would release record of hate crimes and incidents throughout the county. And I also believe that there was a question before in regards to getting a copy of the investigation. And there may be a means of conflict while the investigation is current or ongoing. You would have to wait until, if I'm remembering correctly, you would have to wait until the investigation was deemed closed or record. So that might be a timing thing, but we can definitely tie in to the report, the hate bias reports that we receive, and because it's down by district, how many incidents or crimes have taken place, a matter of who all might be a question that we have to, the police department, if that can be released. It might be an issue with that. But in all, I say all that to say that I believe the investigation it can't be an active investigation for the report, but I could be wrong.
Thank you, Lakeisha. That's valuable information.
So does the commission wish to know if the city puts out a quarterly report on hate crimes?
They do to the state,
Yes.
don't they?
Yes, yes. It used to be, I know for the county commission, they had an ongoing definitely dealing with just Smith, they had an ongoing report with we can definitely try to tie it in that when we receive a hate bias reports, that the city can also receive those same type of reports. So then you can see where and when these things are occurring.
So the specifics on the date of the incident, does anyone have
I
that?
believe it was June 28th at City Dock.
Okay. There wasn't a follow-up incident. I thought that they had another meetup at Annapolis Mall, or is that different?
Well, they did in August, but that
Okay.
was, but that was a positive response.
Okay.
And I think that was, I'm glad they did it. Yeah. And that's the one that included the mayor. Again, one of the reasons, unfortunate reasons for delay is the initial report was to the wrong agency. It was a Naval Academy police officer that they spoke to, and apparently that report didn't get properly transmitted to the city or something like that. But Claudia, if you can find out where it stands and if there is such a report that is public, I certainly would like to see it. I think other members of the commission would as well.
Okay.
I guess it's my recollection that the hate bias reports, which I think are issued every other year, simply collapse Annapolis into Anne Arundel County. There isn't a separate breakdown for the city of Annapolis.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Correct.
Didn't we suggest to the Annapolis police one time when we had them on a phone call that we would like to see a regular report from them? Because I actually remember Claudia, I think, saying, hey, have you seen the dashboard that the county has? It'd be nice if we had something like that too that was public. I kind of remember us just having that conversation, somebody suggesting that, but I feel like that didn't really go anywhere with the Annapolis police.
I have to follow up and ask them. Let me do that.
Because
No,
I know
your recollection is correct, Linda. There was something that we had asked the police for, and they were reluctant to respond. You have to take a lot of time to work with them. But I'm trying to remember. Were you part of the meeting that we had? Was Amy, Captain
Amy Miguez.
Yeah, it was her, it was Trisha, me, and I can't remember if you were part of that telephone conversation or not, Linda. But we pressed them on some issues that they ultimately didn't really respond to in a
I think we were talking to them about doing hate crime training.
That is correct. That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask a quick question, and I don't want to belabor the points that are being made, but when an incident, a hate crime occurs, is it not that the Annapolis Police Department is supposed to contact the Human Relations Commission? I believe you explained this process that's supposed to be in place.
Yeah. This is exactly. I'm glad you refreshed my memory. There was years ago a process that was put together in which the police department would notify the commission of any hate crimes or bias incidents. And for a while, the commission got the reports when they came in. There weren't too many of them. But the police, we actually convened a meeting to talk about reviving this so that we would get these reports on a regular basis. We wouldn't have to ask for them. And Captain Amy McGuiz was the person from the police department, represented the police department on that call. And bottom line was they said, we're not going to be continuing that. If you want a police report, you'll need to ask for it. And I'm glad that Commissioner Hatch reminded me of that, because that's exactly what that meeting, and Judge Barber, you were part of that discussion as well. And they were just pretty firm about it. And so what we're going to do is the feeling of the staff was that we would work with the police department to, if there's a known action, a known hate crime or hate incident that occurs, we will request documentation for it. And we're entitled to it. But the structure that we had for a number of years, in which the police just sent us the reports without us having to ask it, that the police somewhere down the line that got stopped. The last time we had that was at least 3 police chiefs ago. There was, you'll recall, there was a number of turnovers in the police department head, the chief of police, who got caught in the politics of the city. And Chief Johnson is still on board, but there were 2 other police chiefs that preceded him on a very short period. And something happened then. Something happened then that the reporting of matters to the commission, this collaborative effort that we had with them, was simply discarded. We were never told until we actually raised it with them in a meeting. So thank you for reminding me of that. That's exactly what happened with that.
And Mr. Chair, was that established as something that was put in place as best practices, or why do you remember why that was actually established in the first place?
It was established in the first place, and again, this was decades ago that we had it. It was put into place because we wanted to have a collaborative relationship with the police, that they would voluntarily provide us with police reports on hate crimes or hate incidents. Not all of these are reported in the media, especially now. It's just they're just not reported as consistently. And so it was much better that they simply provided us with that information when there was a report that came in which the officer checked the box of hate crime or bias incidents. A bias incident, we had the authority to respond to that right away. Hate crime obviously is a jurisdiction of the police. But in this situation, the feeling was we would work with the police, but we basically, because they were not going to they were not going to restore that initial practice that we had in terms of their providing us with police reports on bias incidents or hate crimes. They simply said you'll have to just ask for them on a one-to-one basis, and that has been an issue.
And I promise you, after this, I'm going to mute my mic, fellow commissioners. I will mute my mic after this question. My mother has taught me since I've been a little boy to ask one of the most important questions, and that is why. So did they explain why they would not provide that information?
I don't quite remember what it was, except that Captain McGuiz said they were simply not going to do it. And we were not in the position of telling the police department what to do. We work in a cooperative manner with the various departments of the city. This was a situation where we would not have won. I mean, and we could have.
So, Mike, I do remember a little bit of it, and we can probably look back at the recording. Luckily, we record our meetings, but I remember initially you were proposing that when there was a hate crime, the police bring in the HR commission to do follow-up with the person. And she said that often they're very reluctant and scared. And then we talked about how hate crimes nowadays are potentially, can open up to so much more than could open up to violence, and that we really need to be safe. And I think that's how we started getting into the conversation as to why we as a commission really needed to try and have some hate crimes training. And then we were asking them to help us figure out how do we get hate crimes training. And they didn't really help us. So I think if I recall, I remember thinking we need to get hate crimes training, and then we can follow back up with them, because then we've gotten training ourselves, and we understand more of the landscape and what they're seeing that we may not, and maybe we could be better prepared to work with them. So that's what I recall. And again, we recorded the meeting, it was all there. Because then you and I started looking into hate crimes training.
Yeah.
Right? Remember that?
I am truly blessed by having commissioners with great memories. And between Commissioner Hatch and Commissioner Mundy and Judge Barber, you have directly answered the question that was raised. The reason why was indeed as Linda has stated. They felt that the commission should not be approaching victims of hate crimes because it would create trauma for them. That was the issue. We didn't quite see it that way. We said we're just going to follow up, and if there's anything we can do for you, is there something we can explain? Is there some ways we can work with you? But Captain McGuez, who is not an enemy of the commission. I mean, she is one of the more, I think, supportive officers in terms of the community. I would not want there to be a feeling that she was trying to thwart us. I think she was under marching orders. I think she was told, let's not have to deal with this. And so the answer that Commissioner Mundy just gave, and the information provided by Commissioner Hatch, are absolutely correct. And that's exactly what occurred. The police just balked at it. They did give a reason. The reason was they felt that it could upset victims, and that for that reason they did not want to continue the collaborative relationship to which they agreed a number of years ago. And I think the judgment of those who participated in the meeting was this is not something we want to fight with them on. I know that was discussed at a meeting. I'm pretty sure that was discussed at a commission meeting. Are there other comments with respect to this? Okay, I think we can move on, but I do appreciate commissioners raising this and responding to the questions that I just had forgotten. We do have one other item, and then we're going to go back to the head of the agenda to cover a couple things real quickly. But I'd like to get an update from Commissioner Mundy about the Coalition for Atonement and Repair. They had made a presentation, I believe, to City Council, and Commissioner Mundy said that she was going to sit in on that. And what transpired with respect to that?
At the September 9th City Council meeting, the coalition of Atonement and Repair, which is also known as CAR, showed up unannounced, not on the agenda, 85 plus people strong. And we had a planned action basically for people to be able to testify and tell their stories of how urban renewal had hurt their families. And still, there's issues from it to this day. So I sent the follow-up email I think to all the commissioners on that. It was a long city council meeting because again, it was unannounced. So I think they went about 2 hours over. And since we have met, so I'm actually on the core team of the Coalition of Atonement and Repair, and I do communications work, really, the emails, setting up meetings, that kind of thing. And the website, if you're interested, the website is CAR, 4 justice.info. And so since we've met with the mayor and he would like to work with the coalition, he has asked the coalition to draft an apology that the city will be giving to the members of the Old Fourth Ward. And so we meet quarterly, and on Saturday we happen to have our quarterly meeting and presented a draft apology. And we're going to be working with the coalition on that, so all the members have a voice in getting to say what they would like to see as part of the apology. And it will be apology with real commitment and support for the families. That includes some accountable actions on behalf of the city, hopefully, or as providing or offering some housing services, economic development for the businesses that were lost, data transparency, and monetary for the loss, the generational wealth that was lost. So that's where we are. And we still have the county and the state and federal even to address. But we're just small and a group of volunteers. So right now we're just working with the city. And I just remembered that the county executive's office emailed and asked to set up a meeting, and then I need to tell them not yet because we just can't do it. But anyhow, so that's the status. But yeah, if you have an opportunity to watch.
Yeah.
It
It was recorded, and I think in your email you
Yeah.
said that was great, Linda. I'm about halfway through it. Very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, so I listed all the people that spoke and where on the video they spoke. And they basically told stories of how urban renewal affected them. So that
Very
was really
painful.
important. That was really important because most of the members of CAR are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. So they really, after organizing for a year on this, just said we need to speak. We need our time. We need this to, we need to speak. So it was good.
I would just mention that the commission has unanimously endorsed the work of the Coalition for Atonement and Repair. Linda represents us on that group, and we definitely will urge the elected officials in the city to allow this project to be successful. So thank you, Linda, for continuing to participate with them.
I think I've finished the thought. It would be the link that Linda had on that to the recorded session of the city council is well worth everybody's time. I would strongly encourage commissioners to, even though it's a long, extended meeting, it's well worth time. Very painful.
Are there any questions for Linda regarding the work of the coalition? Thank you, Linda, for your contributions to this very important activity and for giving voice of the voice of the commission on this. In terms of, we jump back to the beginning of the agenda, there's a couple things. The staff liaison report. Judge Barber, do you have a report today, or?
I don't have a report
Okay.
to add to tonight's meeting. There's been no activity. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. With respect to my report, just a couple things. In case some folks don't know, Commissioner Helen Leach, who is the longest serving member of the commission, appointed by Mayor Al Hopkins eons ago, has decided at age 85 that she wanted to pare back her responsibilities, and she did not seek reappointment to the commission. She held the important post of being the chair of the complaints committee. And I'm pleased to mention that I approached Commissioner Hatch if he would be willing to take on this important role, and he has agreed. So thank you so much, Commissioner Hatch, for doing this. I'd also like to express thanks to Madeline Horrell, who from City of Annapolis TV, who handled all of the logistics of the Zoom call this evening, and never underestimate how much work goes into that. And I'm very grateful that we don't have to find a volunteer within the commission to do that. But thank you, Madeline. We know that you're out there. We see your icon, but thank you so much for your help with this. Is there any other business to be conducted this evening by the commission?
Hey, Mike, I copied you on an email that I sent today to the city clerk's office. And then I think I also copied Claudia and Trisha.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet.
So it was odd to me that our city website does not seem to have voting information on it, up-to-date voting information. So I requested that they do that. I just thought that would be kind of important to have on the website, that people know where the polling places are for early voting, for where the drop boxes are. And I know it's something that you can get from the county and the state as well, but it just would be good if just once again, I Googled Annapolis polling places, and, a web page on the City of Annapolis website from 2021 showed up. So it's just like, that just happens a lot. So anyhow, I just wanted you to know too, so that if you're talking to anybody, then you can help follow up with that.
As a matter of fact, I was asked just today by someone who's in one of my exercise classes whether I knew where she could drop off a ballot, and I said we can do it right here at the Pip Moyer Center.
Yeah,
I had one right there. But I think your initiative, I think, is definitely in order. That should definitely be at the city's website. But I'll take a look at that and see if there's anyone I can think of that I can forward that to. What I may want to do is find out exactly who would be responsible for doing that, for posting.
well, I think it's the city clerk's office, and that's it's Regina. I think that's what it is. So, Claudia, is it Regina's office that's responsible for that?
Someone in the ITS, which was formerly the MIT department,
Okay.
generally handles our website, in a young.
Yeah.
So it may also involve her actually doing the
Yep.
work of replacing whatever outdated information is there.
But
Yeah,
she
I mean-
would get it from city clerk, right? The content, like she wouldn't be able to do it herself. She'd have to get approval from somebody.
Well,
Probably.
you know what I can do, Linda, is and Claudia, is I can send a message tomorrow to the coordinator of boards and commissions, Hillary Rakovich and simply say that this came to my attention, and we certainly should have up-to-date information at the city's website. And Hillary would be empowered to Hillary would then provide that information to Anna Young, who actually does the work of getting it on the website. But the decision to pursue that is something that I think would rest with Hillary, because it'd be coming as a request from a city commission.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other items to be brought before the commission? I would urge the commissioners to give very careful thought to, once again, the 3 E's that Dr. Nikki provided us with in terms of the things that we should be thinking about in terms of what we can contribute to their effort to make the use of this grant something that really will bear fruit for us. I'd like to thank Dr. Smith as well as Ms. Barnett for staying on the call. Usually I extend the invitation and people are gone, but this time I'm delighted that you were willing to stay on for the remainder of our business. We will be in touch, and I definitely picked up on what you said, Dr. Nikki, that you're not going to be bashful to reach out, and please don't, because I think we can be a real good partner for you in this effort, and will be. So with that, I think we have no additional business, and so I'm going to declare the meeting adjourned.
Good night.